Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and thanks for stopping by. Our dedicated team will guide you through with the latest updates and theories at Starbase, Texas. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for future streams.
Hello, everybody. My name is Zach Golden. Welcome to another Starbase Weekly live stream. Happy to be here with y'all today. This is the first flight, well, actually the second flyover since the most recent flight attempt. We did have one after the last launch, but it was one of those low-level ones where unfortunately you're not able to get a lot of good angles on a lot of the things that we care to see. So we did another one this week, and it should be fantastic. So hope y'all are excited. I have some guests with here today that we typically have with us. So welcome, Alex.
Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. It's going to be a great show. We have tons of amazing shots, so let's get going.
Cool. And we also have BJ joining us today.
Yeah, as well. Thanks everyone for coming. Thanks for hosting us this time, Zach. And it's definitely shaping up to be a good show. Things, the previews last night with the Patreon crew were great, and we'll get going to it.
Yeah. And just as a forewarning to everyone, so I am in Texas today and currently in the middle of a pretty large windstorm. So I've been losing power on and off here and having issues with that. Lots of background noise as well too. So just bear with us today if y'all happen to notice any of that stuff. But yeah, glad to actually be able to be on. Usually I'm not able to actually do these shows on my off or my on weeks from work. So happen to get lucky today and able to do that. So with that, we will go ahead and jump to the show. But before we do that, I almost forgot, we do have Astro Joe with us handling questions and donations. So welcome, Astro Joe. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you, Zach. Always good to share a stream with you, Alex and BJ. Let's dive right in.
Awesome. And I am on my laptop today as well too, instead of having monitors. So hopefully things don't look too different than they normally do. We're trying to mess with this aspect ratio on the screen, so sorry for those black bars. But yeah, we will get that handled. So if you guys notice some changes while we're going here, that's what's going. So yeah. Alrighty. Well, today we are going to start with Massey's, of course, but I did want to start with this image as always. I really like those wide angle views that kind of show the whole site. I actually haven't seen this angle in a while personally. I'm sure Mauricio has taken shots from this angle since the second tower was constructed, but I honestly don't remember seeing any from this angle in quite a while. So it is really cool actually being able to see everything from this angle with the two towers down there. Starbase looks quite different now than it did even just 6 months ago. So things are progressing really fast. And as always, as a result, we have a ton of stuff to talk about. So let's go ahead and hop into it. Alrighty, so starting off at Massey's, we just missed by about a day having two vehicles over here testing at the same time. So ship 35 just finished up cryo testing, I think 2 days ago. So it did perform, I believe, 3 cryo tests. Really cool, actually. They ended up doing 2 back-to-back on, I think that was, what, Thursday, Alex? You remember?
Yeah.
Or BJ?
Yeah, it was on the
Yeah.
12th, which would have been Thursday.
Yeah, and booster 16 is sitting here. I think it did 2. Has it done 2 cryo tests already?
Yeah, I think that's the right number for 16.
Yeah, a bit interesting that it hasn't moved back yet. Um, and are you guys expecting that we might see another one, or they're just kind of holding off for some reason?
Well, it has really nowhere to go right now. We were able to get some confirmations this week that Booster 17 is now on the center workstation at the build site. So it doesn't have a stand to go to, so it may be waiting for a vacant corner slot.
So booster 15 is in there as well, right? And then booster 12 is
Or
outside, isn't it? Or sorry,
yeah, but
booster.
12, yes, is outside, but 14's on the back left, 15 is on the back right with their post launch inspections and refurbishment.
Yeah, gotta love that. Finally starting to run into problems where it's running out of workstations in order to fit all of these vehicles, which is makes it necessary to expand their available workstations, which we will get into a bit later in the show. Probably in the next like 20 minutes, we'll start to talk about how they are planning to handle all of that, which I'm sure a lot of you are already aware of. But on that note, let's go ahead and continue on. So we are still waiting on a static fire test of ship 35, but as I just mentioned, it just moved back to the production site and is now waiting on engine installation. So we should probably see that in the coming weeks. I'm guessing probably at least 2 weeks from now, we'll probably see ship 35 come out for static fire testing. I think that timeline is a bit hard to predict because, as most of y'all know, with the outcome of Flight 8, they are probably going to be making some changes, which I can only imagine haven't happened yet because of how quickly it rolled out from the Megabay 2 for cryo testing. So I imagine that they're either going to be making those tests or making those changes before the static fire test, which would make the most sense, or after the static fire test. But yeah, we should probably see it come back out in the coming weeks. And once that happens, it'll be interesting to see whether or not they do a normal static fire test or they go with another 60-second test. I personally think it'll probably do a shorter one. I don't think they're necessarily able to test for the things they want to test for by doing a static fire test, but we will see shortly. But one of the things that I wanted to check on after that 60-second static fire test was the condition of the flame trench, because there was far more wear put on the trench than a normal static fire test, which are normally about anywhere between 6 to about 10 seconds. So when you do a 60-second test, you're basically putting almost 6 flights worth of wear on the actual trench itself. So was expecting to potentially see some signs of wear on this, and I know those of you who have tuned in over the last year or so since this became active have heard us talk about the fact that they don't have steel walls on this trench, but actually it doesn't look as bad as I was expecting it to. But you can see the pitting on the or sorry, I guess it's actually spalling when it comes to concrete. So a little bit of damage on the walls, but I don't know, Alex. Do you think it's any worse than it was before that test?
The floor and the trench at the end have some ripples, but the walls look like they held up pretty well.
Yeah, it still looks pretty bad in my opinion. like I would have done everything in my power to prevent this from happening. And on that note, it seems like have thought ahead when it comes to the orbital flame trench. So it's going to be difficult for us to actually show it today because most of the components that kind of made it clear that they were doing this are missing in action. But instead of going with concrete walls on that trench, as far as we know, or from what we can tell based on some equipment that has shown up over the last week, it does appear that they will have steel walls on that trench. So that's really good because, if this is the kind of damage that happens when you have 6 engines firing, once you increase that to 33, then your problem is obviously amplified. So a lot more heat obviously, and I'm really glad that they did what they didn't do here, or were planning to do what they didn't do here, as far as properly protecting the walls of that trench. Honestly, I think it would actually make sense to do steel for the ramp as well too. Although I'm not sure if the ramp kind of gets the same damage as the walls. We do see those ripples, as Alex mentioned, but um, it doesn't quite look the same as far as like spalling damage. It just looks like ripples in the actual concrete. I'm not sure what to think about that.
It could just be exaggerating some of the existing from when they poured it as well.
Right. Yeah, but I've been hoping that we would see them actually place some like steel panels over these walls, but to actually do so is not exactly that easy. They did do it on the walls of the integration tower, on the base of the structure, so it is possible, but it does, I think, require them to drill like anchors through this wall, which may be one of the things that they're trying to avoid doing. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think they're avoiding it as well, just because setting anchors, it's a pretty dense rebar cage, and drilling into the rebar is not generally a good idea.
Yeah. Do you think it could ever reach a point where they have to do some major remediation?
They'll probably skim coat it with Martite or one of the uh, high temperature refractory mixtures.
Yeah, I was thinking that we might see that in the future. Like I said, I think a few weeks ago. I'm surprised they haven't already done that. But they do appear to be doing some sort of work in the trench. We do see some scaffolding set up on this side. Initially, I thought maybe they were trying to get down to the actual flame bucket, but given that we can see some scaffolding on the side over here, Alex, you had a different opinion on what they might be doing here.
I thinking they're servicing the tracks for the deck, but you can also there's a catwalks directly behind the flame bucket here, so they could get to both right now.
Are you talking about this one?
Yeah, that one looks like they're working on the track.
Yeah, I'm surprised that I guess that would just be damage from like environmental damage, not necessarily from static fire test, right? Like, you know, rain causing like, um, or not even rain, I guess, just general moisture in the air. You kind of get rusting or oxidation on the actual the tracks, right?
Yeah, it should be fairly robust because it's the train rail or the crane rail, like they have at shipyards for the gantries for
Hmm.
the. So it's designed for a heavy, rough environment.
Okay.
But they
Yeah.
do have some dampers under the track, so those might have needed a bit of alignment.
Right. Yeah. So I guess moving on from that, moving over here, I'm grab another image really quick. As I mentioned, booster 16 sitting out here. It is increasingly getting difficult for me to remember which boosters are which, but I'm trying to do my best here. So we did mention a few weeks ago that they were constructing a new cryo test stand for boosters, and you can see that over here right now. They have, I guess, taken a little bit of a break on it because they seem to like working on it while it's on top of the pedestals over here, but while the booster's on top there, they have to move it off of there, so it's kind of like a back and forth movement between those two positions. But as of right now, they do have the steel plates on top of the base, just forming, I guess, the floor of this. And as we mentioned a few weeks ago, this is a bit different than the other test stand. It's kind of difficult to see from this angle, but the what you're seeing here as far as the floor goes was actually concrete on the original test stand. And so with this, they're going with a steel floor, which allows them to kind of change around the engine positions. So there are some. Are these actually embeds? I don't think they are.
There
Oh, okay.
covers
Sorry. For where they poured the concrete inside of it.
exactly.
Yeah. So basically, they have or they will have soon mounting points for each of the 33 engines. So um, they have kind of the same thing in the other stand, but they are using embedded plates in that concrete, which means that if they need to reconfigure the position of the engines, they can't do that because it's pretty much set in stone, literally. So this kind of gives them the ability to move things around if they need to. So with the changes that are coming to the V2 boosters, the engine positions will more than likely need to change from what they are currently, because we're expecting that the booster QD will be moved either on the side or the backside. It's a little tough to determine exactly where it's going to be at because we don't know what the booster QD gantry structure, how it's going to look once it's finished. But we are expecting that the booster QD will no longer be in front of the vehicle. And because of that, the positions for the 3 center engines and the ring of 10 will all shift. Actually, I think it's actually just the 3 in the center that will shift. But again, that really depends on where that booster QD is actually located on the vehicle. So this is basically preparations for the version 2 booster going on right here, because this cryo stand will not work for that new booster. So I guess moving on from there, and sorry in advance, I'm going to try and speed us through this because I do have somewhat of a hard stop that I gotta adhere to at 2 hours today, since I'm technically kind of supposed to be at work. But so moving on, we do see that over here with the liquid oxygen storage, it seems like they're preparing to install a 5th LOX tank. So we see that they've kind of broken out the concrete over here, and we're expecting, I'm guessing, that a drilling rig will show up soon to drill CFA auger piles here, so that they'll be able to put some, basically form the foundation for another tank. And this is actually going to be a bit interesting because I don't know if they'll be able to just roll the tank in here and place it on top of the pedestals like they have done in the past, because they don't really necessarily have space to do that. I'm imagining they may end up having to move this crane. Let me see if I have a.
No, there shouldn't be any problem with that, Zach. Because these ones, they come transported on a cross beam, and they don't sit on a single stand. They're on 2 separate pipe stands, so the SPMTs just drive down the middle.
Okay, so the SPMTs can fit between these 2 pedestals.
Yeah, it's just like how the last 3 or so at the launch site have been done, where they can just drive in from the end. So there shouldn't be any issue. That's how the previous 2 were in. There's no side access needed.
Okay, that makes sense then. So do you think that so we a few weeks ago we did see some tanks that were being shipped from KSC. Did they come from Pad 39A?
Yes, I think they were the old methane tanks they brought in.
Well, the ones that left KSC were nitrogen tanks from the methane farm. But they're not headed towards Starbase, to the best of our knowledge. They went to a port closer to Houston.
Yeah, so most of them are actually, we're expecting them to go to McGregor, but I am wondering if they'll send at least one of them down here, or if they'll probably have to special order that tank from, where did they come from in Europe?
Czech Republic.
Yeah. The Chart Industries ones
Okay.
come out of Czech Republic, is one of the locations. They're manufactured in a couple of places, but
Right, and the tanks none of those tanks that were shipped are the same size as these ones, right?
No, they're like the
Okay.
rib tank at the LC.
Okay, yeah, so we probably won't see those come here then. But yeah, I imagine sometime within the next few months we will get a fifth LOX tank here. And I do find it interesting that they still need to expand this because that is quite a lot of liquid oxygen, especially considering that most of it is recovered. The only time they truly lose a lot of it is during the ship static fire tests. So I would say, if I had to guess, at least 90% of it, if not more, is recovered during the booster and ship cryo tests. But as the pace of testing continues to increase, having cryo tests for both boosters and ships, and then ship static fire tests, it does become necessary to increase that amount of storage capacity. But I'm surprised that they haven't also needed to increase the liquid nitrogen capacity. But they do have, I think all of these are liquid nitrogen, right?
Correct. No, the
Yeah.
3 at the top are LOX.
Okay. So they do have some locks over here. Yeah, with the limitations on space they have here, I was actually thinking that at some point they may try and swap these out for larger tanks, but I think that kind of gets a little bit messy because they're not all the same length. So, yeah, maybe they're kind of stuck with this for now. So moving on a little bit, we do have some updates with the new test structure going on here, and I'll let one of y'all kind of explain what we're seeing here.
Go for it, Alex.
Say,
BJ,
don't fight
you're
over
the resident expert on this.
Oh, yeah. First off, this week we got a really great angle and really great lighting conditions down in here. I don't think we've gotten this good of a view in there, but we can see now all the way down to the base structure that we knew is filled with concrete. They're definitely expanding on some of the systems around the perimeter. There's those brackets we've got the brackets that are attached to that inner catwalk that we're still a little confused on what their purpose is for. It does seem like there's one for every clamp. We're not quite sure if it's more related to the engine mount rams that are inside and between the clamps, or if that's where I'm kind of leaning, because the way that they're kind of straddling around the pull down pieces. So, but we haven't seen a whole lot of progress here. What we did actually see is over at the building, the 2 rings that form up the center 3 and the center ring of 10 have finally the inner ring of 3 finally appeared. It's been missing for a little bit, and the ring of 10 also arrived, or has been moved.
Okay, I'm trying to find that really quick.
Yeah, 2 to the left of the one you're looking at right now.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I will find a great angle of it. This one should show it, right?
Yeah,
Oh, no, we're
just
looking
off
at
the
these
edge,
over here,
off
right?
the corner. Yeah. So, but we've been kind of watching these 2 rings develop over the last couple months. Actually, we kind of suspected that they were for the 2 remaining rings of test rams for this structure, and this week they've finally appeared, and they've got a whole lot of new. They've got rams installed on them now. There's a few pieces of interesting hardware, particularly on that ring of 10 on the right-hand side. We see those 4 square tubing pieces that are attached to it. Our best guess right now is that maybe it's some kind of alignment, kind of like a tongue and groove, where those 2 are making a groove, and we think there might be a piece on the small one that kind of creates the tongue that might slot into it to orient all of those properly when placed into the test rig.
Yeah, so they would still have one more actuator in the middle right here.
Yeah, that's where the spacing seems to suggest the 10th one will go, because 9 of them are in there right now.
Right. And one of the interesting things that they have going on here, or I guess the reason it's over in this location in the first place, is because it seems like they are calibrating those actuators, right? So this over here is the calibration devices.
Correct.
Yeah, it is definitely I'm not entirely sure that being over here has a whole lot to do with that. I think a lot of these rams were stored on the racks next to the tent. So perhaps it's just a little bit closer, or maybe even it had to do with being away from those work areas where they're working on drilling they were starting to do that prep work for the tank and other things, and they just needed to be away from other activities happening on the site.
Right. Yeah, so these are, it looks like the smaller actuators are for those center engines, right? And um, then the longer ones are for uh, the Ring of 10. Am I
Well,
seeing that right?
the left one is actually the much larger rams that are used for the outer 20 for the can crusher cap.
Okay.
Um, the one that's in that smaller rack is actually is shorter and much wider than even the ones that are on the ring, which we've been seeing a bunch of different size rams everywhere. We're not entirely sure yet what they're for, and I don't think I've gotten a good count on how many of those little stubby ones are. I'm wondering if there was only 5 of them. I wonder if it has to do with some new mounting points that have been added to the actual test ring itself in the last week for some other kind of testing that isn't very clear.
Could these shorter ones be for that cryo testing station?
It could be that too. There's a lot of options right now.
Yeah, there's a ton of actuators out here. So if I could just go to a different image over here. Um, Actually, where did they move? Oh yeah, okay. There's a bunch of them over here. So these are those longer ones which are used around the edge. Um,
Uh,
Sorry, so these ones are actually on the top right here, right?
one level up. Those 5 are the ones that actually attach the can crusher cap to it. It's actually they go to the mounts that are one ring higher than that. What we're
Sorry,
looking
I'm
at
trying to
right
find a
yeah.
better image.
But what we were looking at there was the new ones that I was talking about that we don't know what are for. But yeah, that one right there at the top, that's where those 5 longer ones secure to the can crusher cap, uh, to the structure itself. But right there
What about these
at
ones?
those are brand new. Those are the ones I had just mentioned that are new this week. The access platforms have been in development for the last probably 3 weeks. We've seen them there, but this week's the first time that we've actually seen there's new mounts there. They're attached to a plate on the leg that is actually a 45-degree angle upward facing. Um, so it's really kind of interesting. It's hard to tell whether they're going to be another attachment point for the can crusher cap, or if maybe there's some kind of other testing at the mid level of a test article. All 5 legs have them, so I think we're gonna have to keep an eye on that to see what's going on there.
Yeah,
And there's tons of more heavy duty mounting points on the structure.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. So was this one also used for the flap the flap mounting points
They did
for
a ad hoc ledge
on one
they
of the
welded
rings?
on for that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
the flap actuators were actually they had placed a beam between the 2 legs just below one of the rings. Yeah, like Alex said, that test was done with a completely customized addition that's been removed from the structure completely.
Yeah, it seems like the true. I mean, obviously, this thing can be used for multiple types of tests, but it seems like the true thing that it was developed for, which in my opinion is booster testing, booster um, V2 booster testing. We've yet to actually see it be used for that, but I imagine it's probably not very far off. One thing we're waiting for is the clamps to be added onto here. So they do have the blocks for those clamps to attach to, but we have yet to see those actually arrive. I imagine that the test article for this is probably being constructed right now inside of the Star Factory, but obviously we have not. We won't actually see that until it rolls out.
Yeah,
Actually,
I think you're right on that because it's been probably almost 2 months now, 6 to 8 weeks ago. There was that one ring that was built here at Massey's that was integrated or at least test fit with the can crusher cap, and then it rolled into the factory, which we kind of suspected as maybe a test article top plate. And that's been in the factory for a while, probably related to that first test article when it shows up.
And
Yeah,
on what
depending on how tall it is, we may actually see it before it rolls out because when they stack it, it may have to go in the area where they're doing all the nose cones, right?
correct, because it's the only section I think high enough for it.
Yeah.
And a month ago, there was a rack that in the Star Factories that was labeled for 18.1.
Right. Yeah, for that test article for the forward section, right, of the
Yeah,
booster. Yeah. That will be exciting. I'm wondering if that will come out with a integrated hot stage ring or not. I'm still skeptical that that's real. I mean, at this point, there's not necessarily a reason to expect it not to be real. But one of the things that they have not been able to do is, well, I guess they did recover a hot stage ring after it had landed in the ocean. But on that note, actually, it's kind of surprising that they haven't done it recovered one since then. Now that I think about it. Um, but yeah, so only having recovered one hot stage ring, maybe that was enough for them to kind of study it and figure out what they need to change on it in order to build an integrated hot stage ring. But that's one of the things that I'm nervous about because once they integrate that onto the booster, if that becomes damaged, I think it'll be a bit difficult to change that out on the booster. Like that could cause them to have to scrap a whole booster, I imagine. What do you guys think?
it would. I don't know how you would secure a 9-meter burn plate on the top of the booster.
Yeah.
I'm, I lack imagination.
Yeah, I mean, and building something that can withstand multiple multiple hot staging events, I just can't imagine that actually happening, but I don't know. We'll see. I still am in the camp of, that those will continue to be consumables for a very long time. But it will be very interesting to see if they're actually able to pull that off.
Yeah, and
And
I'm thinking some of the additions on the stand are for testing that. I mean, just the structural test for it.
yeah, I actually did see a comment in the chat from Event Dudes, who says it's really surprising that they haven't recovered Booster 13. Yeah, I was actually thinking about that as well. Like, I wonder why they haven't at least recovered the aft section of that. I do kind of wonder if because it's so close to shore that they can kind of monitor it. So they may not necessarily be worried about somebody going down there to try and recover things because they can pretty much see it at all times, the location where it's at. So I don't know. Maybe that might have something to do with it.
I mean, they probably could have just towed it in and not shot it full of holes.
Right. Well, uh, I mean, it blew up before they destroyed it, right? So I wonder if it probably would have been difficult to actually tow it in and kind of risky as well too if it would have collapsed as they were towing it. That would have been quite a large problem.
Yeah.
I guess as long as you have a quick release system, then maybe you're not worried as much.
Yeah. If they're not equipped to send the salvage divers down, it's probably not worth it.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So we do also have this test article. Um, I'm not even going to attempt to identify it. I want to say test tank 16, but I'm pretty sure this is
Yeah, it's 16, and it's not there,
okay.
and it's not there anymore either.
Okay, yeah.
Scrapyard.
So did this move back last night?
Yes, it did. It is in the
Okay.
rocket, well, across from the rocket garden in the scrapyard area.
It's a
Yeah.
nice dent it got.
Right. Yeah. So this is from, well,
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
the
From the
actual area that they were testing was this side though, right?
No, it was right there. They tested at the
Oh, yeah. Here we
there,
go.
but they did raise it. They did raise it up to that upper level, and they did some squeeze tests up there too. And obviously, it doesn't have a dome there to help it keep its shape as well as it did at the lower testing area.
Yeah, I mean, even though there's a dent, I don't think that's necessarily a problem. I mean, and just as a refresher, this is related to the preparing for that first catch attempt of the ship. So they're basically testing to make sure that the structure of the ship, which will have a reduced internal tank pressure, they wanted to make sure that the chopsticks essentially weren't going to crush the ship as they close in on it. And I mean, I think as long as it didn't actually collapse, then that's kind of a good sign. A little dent probably doesn't necessarily matter because this thing is probably no longer pressurized, right?
Yeah, as soon as they pressurize it, that'll pop right out.
Yeah.
And then on re-entry, it'll heat up and anneal it and relieve any internal stress, so it'll be fine.
Right.
Yeah, I think and those forces also from those tests. I mean, they were likely putting a more static squeeze on them as opposed to the dynamic kind of bumping that it'll get when it's catching on the real chopstick. So forces are going to be a little bit different. So I think all of those things will be inconsequential.
Yeah, for sure. Alrighty. Any other things that we've missed over here at Massey's?
I mean, one thing just to key that we should keep an eye on by the nose cone jail, there is that another new ring mount. I think we did get a kind of glance of it in last week's episode, and we mentioned it in the update video. Since the other one showed up, we're not quite sure what this is related to. The color of it kind of makes it maybe even related to the test cage. Maybe it's part of the new booster thrust sim. It's just new, and we'll have to keep an eye on it.
This to me looks like something that they also probably have at McGregor. It looks very similar to what you would put the landing tank of the booster on top of.
Yeah.
It's about 3 meters. The landing tank's about 3 meters. But on that note, I'm surprised that it's here because they have already done that test at McGregor. So that's a bit curious. Cool. I guess before we switch over to Sanchez, actually, I'm going to stop somewhere else before we go there. Astro Joe, do we have any questions or donations that we should touch on?
Indeed, we do. We got a old PayPal donation I need to address between now and the last live stream from the Noisy Ghosts of Boca Chica. Thank you, the entire team, for the really great work. Best wishes with a $120 donation. Thank you very much. A $15 PayPal donation from Julian Richards. Thanks for all the photos. I want to thank Calistia Lee for gifting 10 memberships, as well as 55 Chevy Guy Steve and Drew Nar for both gifting 5. Rocket Prophet for gifting 10 memberships. Want to welcome Bork the Pork for joining the membership, joining as a member. Thank you very much. Also, a question from Bork the Pork. Love the name. Do the smaller actuators allow for higher frequency to check for different harmonics problems?
I doubt that. I don't think. I don't know how deep I want to get into this, but that problem I don't think you can do externally. That would be a super high frequency that you're trying to accomplish with that. I think that's actually something you would probably use a pump for, and it would be an engine test. It wouldn't necessarily be a structural test on the vehicle. So,
all right,
cool.
That's all I got. So carry on.
Yeah, that is a reply that only one person who asked that question will understand what I'm even saying. So, all right, so let's go ahead and move on to. Not the Sanchez site. I do want to touch on some areas before we get there. So one area that we don't regularly see actually is the Ad Astra facility. And I am struggling to find that picture right now. Okay, this is a great one right here. So this is the facility where they actually have the launch control room. And this is also the school. So the the control room, I believe, is in this building, right?
No, I believe it's in the temporary buildings down there at the bottom, just alongside
This
the
one?
school. Nope, down farther. You got the 10
Here.
modulars. Yep. Pretty sure that's where launch control is.
Okay. Yeah, you're right, because when they do have a great view of the launch site from there, so you're right, it's probably this one. But this is actually cool, and I honestly I think this is the first time I've seen this since they finished it. So this building was actually 3D printed, and yeah, this is their school, and I think as far as I know, they are planning to expand the school, right?
Yeah, they're doing the $20 million expansion, first through 12th grade, I believe.
So are we expecting that will be in that same location, or more than likely up here?
I don't think it's
Ye-
going to be there. That seems to be just a relocation of some of the housing, because those trailers there were moved from where they're building a apartment complex. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if this picture shows it, but I saw one. There's a clearing about 3 lots to the left of this one. I don't know if it's new, or if it has anything to do with the school. Yeah, that looks kind of new. I'm wondering if that maybe has something to do. Somebody might have some documentation, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it does
But
look like they've recently done this.
yeah, I'm not sure where the school, other than knowing that they are doing a school expansion. I'm not very familiar with where that is taking place at.
Yeah, for sure. I guess also in this area there is this little storage lot down here, which let me see if I have a better shot of that. Yeah, so not a ton down here, but they are currently moving the LR 11,000, the also known as Marvin. Most of the boom sections have been moved here. I think these are the ones that were already located here, but they're slowly breaking down that crane and moving everything here. Not 100% sure why they're doing that. I think a reason to keep it at the launch site is because if they ever need to take the hot stage ring off of the top of a booster, which they have done multiple times over the last 3 or 4 flights, that crane is actually necessary for that, because they won't want to bring the yellow 11,000 over there for that reason. But yeah, very curious why they're actually dismantling that crane. But also over here, we do see another recent addition. Which one is it? This one?
The left one, yep.
Yeah, so this is the turntable that was inside of the high bay. So they have moved that turntable over here. This was one of the last remaining structures inside of that, inside of the high bay, and it is now over here since the last live stream. But yeah, that is another good sign of them preparing to dismantle the high bay. We will see several more signs of that once we get to the build site area. Other than that, we do have a lot of items that are destined for the launch site. Most of the stuff that they've been bringing in there, these basically skids that they mount all of their components to, they end up basically lifting these in as assembled into place at the launch site, which is really nice because it's actually made their construction process way faster. Instead of lifting pipes one at a time, they're actually able to place these skids right onto their mounting locations. And we don't know where they're assembling these, but it seems like for the most part they're actually installing way faster than they're able to deliver these. So I imagine some of them are still under construction, but there's probably a lot of them that are already finished and just waiting to be delivered. But pretty much almost as soon as they arrive, they're being installed. Some of these that are still here right now, I imagine other things need to be installed first before these ones can be sent to the launch site. But yeah, it's impressive the way they've done this in comparison to the original tank farm.
Yeah, here we can see up here. We can see a lot of those skids that are actually empty. It seems like most of the skids are arriving from an outside manufacturer. with all the framework and stuff. And then a lot of the pipework seems to be being fitted at the GSE building in Sanchez. And then obviously we've seen some come out here for storage that aren't quite ready to go in, but we can see those ones there, and there's some stacked ones to the right and all over the place. Just
Oh, so
and
you think they're being you think they're being assembled in that building and
I
not somewhere else?
Yeah, I think they're getting those raw frames in from an outside manufacturer, and then their all the pipe fitting and assemblies are being done here at Sanchez.
Yeah,
Yeah,
one
that
of
makes sense.
the one of the lock skids is being assembled actually at the launch site.
Okay, interesting. I am slightly skeptical of that just off of some other information that I've been told, but it does make sense, and maybe there's a little bit confusion on my side. But yeah, I
I
mean,
I know some, like by the orange forklift right next to the two trailers. Um, those and those three showed up. They were trucked in because
okay.
they have compressors, so they're for the high pressure vaporizing, I believe.
Hmm.
And those definitely were not assembled on site.
Okay, that makes sense. So we got two different things going
Yeah,
on here, basically.
probably a combination of both, depending on how complex each one is.
Right. Cool. I would keep moving us forward. So we'll take a brief glance over here at the man. What are they calling this again? Rio West.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So this is the basically housing development for SpaceX employees. So they have these apartments that are being constructed down here, making some great progress on that. They've got the roofs on most of them, and yeah, these are coming along pretty fast. They're also finally got the floors poured for these connected houses. And I wanted to call them a duplex, but they're not because they're all connected. So this kind of makes a lot more sense towards what we were thinking before, that these are probably the garages down here, and then you can see where the actual main structure will go. So I
Yeah.
think they have four groups of these, or maybe more. So another group right here. I think we'll probably see another group over here. It almost looks like, maybe not.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's probably six groups of them. It looks like two on the near side, that one on the end cap, and then kind of three on the other side, a big one in the middle of two short ones. I'm assuming that where all these ramps are will be like open area to access
They can get
between
in between.
to get in
Yeah,
between them.
yeah. It's kind of cool that they're how many different types of houses they got going on here, apartments, and then single family homes, and um, these are. I'm not really sure on these ones. They seem to be potentially. This one looks like a duplex right here. It's tough to tell.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I feel it. Yeah, it seems like they might be more like single family there, and then you got those townhomes that are all connected and apartments. It's a very a nice assortment of things instead of it just being like all of it being cookie cutter, one same thing for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish they did that in my neighborhood because everything kind of looks the same. Yeah, definitely making a lot of progress. I think the slowest of everything is kind of back here, but they do have some of the floors poured back here. So moving along quite quickly. I am wondering if they're going to expand over into this area. They haven't started to clear that land yet, but I imagine eventually that will end up happening. Um, but we do have some other housing developments that are going on, which we will see once we get past the production site area. And on that note, I will go ahead and move us over to the Sanchez site. Actually, really quickly, is there anything at the Port of Brownsville that we should probably mention?
No, then there's a number of interesting things there, but none of it really pertains to Starbase or SpaceX even. So, but for those who have access to all those, I encourage you to look through. There's a lot of fun stuff with the LNG plant and things that are arriving for it.
Yeah, that LNG plant is crazy. I almost wish we had time to cover it like at the end of these episodes. Um, because it's actually really interesting. But those of you who were gifted memberships today, or anybody who's become a member or already a member, you do have access to all of the flyover images. So make sure to check those out if you want to see some of that stuff. It's pretty impressive facility that they have going on down here. So yeah, I welcome y'all to check that out. In the meantime, I will go ahead and move us over to the Sanchez site. And we will start over near the new launch mount for Pad B, which, as far as I can tell, not as many changes as since from the last flyover. They still have, and I'm gonna grab a different angle of this. So they put this water manifold on the side of it a few weeks ago, but they have yet to start actually installing all of the pipes in between the actual manifold and the pancake structure. So I'm not sure what all they've been working on since then. Maybe y'all can kind of answer that. It does seem like they have a bunch of electrical wires right here, probably for welding equipment inside of the table structure. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, they've been welding away and slowly loading on a lot
On
of
the inside?
pipe work. Yeah.
Let
And
me look at a
this,
side angle of this, because last time we did talk about the pipes that they added to the inside of the structure. Are those still okay? They are still poking out of the side right here.
and there's been a handful more showing up. What's humorous with the manifold is it looks like perhaps the plate going to the pancake was installed the wrong direction.
What do you mean?
If you go to the previous shot, on the left side, the pipework doesn't line up with the manifold,
Oh,
and if you flipped it um, edgewise, so those two on the far left should be in the middle, it would match the other side.
oh wow, wow,
Yeah,
that
Yeah,
is awkward.
yeah, and it's hard to tell. I mean, the symmetry of the manifold of the tube manifold makes more sense that it was the properly built one, but it looks like the spacing, it could have been even where one or the other was welded to inverted to where it should be, or they,
Jesus,
they surely they didn't intend for there to be two extra on one end and the other end not
that is
matching.
crazy. Oh my gosh. I
yeah,
wait, but okay, so in some of the ground images, I've seen that they've actually welded this onto the brackets, it looks like the mounting brackets, right?
yeah, they did.
So
You can,
surely they're aware of this
yeah,
situation. Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you could tell on this side that they all line up perfectly, and then these are shifted over. That is crazy. How does that even happen?
I don't know, because yeah, the center area with no pipes is yeah.
Yeah,
Wow, I
having
wonder.
those having the two pipes as close to the very end to the very corner doesn't make sense just because of the small amount of area that it actually sends water into. I would suspect that they're probably going to cut those guys off and drill some new holes on the other side that line up. But
Mm. Yeah, I would say that it kind of looks like this part was installed backwards and not this.
Right.
yeah, and we can see those last two haven't been cut off like all the rest of them have been in preparation for elbows, which I think also supports that they may just do something else, cut them off, and replace them or whatever.
Man, that's wild. I'm surprised they didn't notice that before. Man, yeah, that'll be interesting to see how they end up solving that, because I mean, it's not a huge deal. Like they could just, you know, cut these off and cap them and then cut holes through here and weld new ones onto that side. But yeah, that is little things like that that end up causing delays to a project. I mean, theoretically, you could start to install these at least on this side and then handle this while you're doing that. But yeah, that's a tough one right there. I mean, I guess it actually is a little bit difficult to access this part now with this huge manifold there. I suppose you can probably crawl up underneath it, and I mean, because it's a lot larger than it looks like from this angle. But yeah, that's crazy. So anything else that we've noticed up here? They've obviously several weeks ago, I guess, finished welding the top plate, joining all of these together. It's really tough to see. I'm sure there's tons of work going on, or most of the work probably is going on inside of the table right now. Surprised we haven't seen anything else going on the other three sides of this yet.
Yeah, I mean, other than them putting the plates that have the holes on the ends, I mean, I think it's one of those things where you have to get just perfectly lucky with timing of a photo and the sunlight and all the other things. But there's definitely been some work in the last few weeks that has been done inside of the ring, down at the lower, essentially the lower rim, right where like the clamp arms will attach.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think if they hadn't built up all the scaffolding, we might actually see it in this particular image. But a couple of weeks ago, in some other images, we were able to see some of the structures in there. But man, the timing has just got to be perfect on angle and sun and everything to see it.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of sad not being able to see what's going on, given the location that all this is happening. But at the same time, even if it was being installed in an area where you could see it, I have a feeling that you still wouldn't be able to see much because, I mean, the outside of this thing is just pretty much a solid wall with a few holes in the ends, versus the original launch mount. They had all of the panels that were on the side of it, which weren't installed until they actually got deeper into the assembly process. So, yeah, going to be a lot of things that are very difficult to determine about this thing until we happen to see like a picture from a certain angle or something like that once it's actually fully constructed. So,
Yeah, because even the outside is, I'm pretty sure, and I'd have to look around, but I think all four sides are now completely covered, all of the remaining holes, other than the actual hatches on the lower, that are purposely still open. But all of those joining gaps were closed up in the last week or so.
okay.
and
Yeah,
and
great
painted.
progress though. Yeah, I mean, there must be a ton of welding going on the inside though, because this is a lot of wires right here. Matter of
Yeah,
fact, we can.
yeah. One of the things that was thought on that last night is that perhaps that all of those wires are related to them doing some metal heating in there. I can't quite tell to confirm it, but I feel like maybe along the inner surface where they added the cover to the pancake, I wonder if they're doing similar heating and welding like they did on the outside perimeter. But we can't really see if that's true or not.
What would that heating be for?
To preheat the metal before the weld, so to cut down on the internal stress.
Gotcha. So would that be like some blankets that they put on it, like a thermal blanket or something to?
Yeah.
'Cause- Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, there's some ground photos of them doing it on and off, depending if when the photographers are out.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Pretty intense work going on down here. Um, I'm excited for them to continue making progress on this. And I guess we can also go ahead and talk about that flame bucket since it's on a related subject. So they have removed the I don't know what you want to call it, but the clamps that they had in between here that they used to align all of the pipes. So those are now removed. They haven't filled these gaps yet, which I guess isn't all that surprising. But given the fact that we see these tents down here or canopies, I think they have begun welding the pipes together, right?
Yeah. And it looks like they're starting to market for the hole drilling. You can see
Oh,
the
yeah, we
blue.
do see the paint going on down here. So, yeah, that is a multi-step process and quite intensive actually, because not only do you have like a little bit of a gap between all of these, so you have to like bridge that gap in between each one, which probably requires I don't know, somewhere between 1 to 5 passes in order to actually join each of these together. So, tons of welding up and down each of these, and then they will be drilling holes through all of the pipes basically to create a pattern for the density of holes. So in some areas you want greater density, and other areas you want less. Obviously, anywhere that the engines are going to be directly firing on, you want more holes in those areas. So the color of paint basically will be an identifier for like the spacing of the holes. So in the red areas, I'm assuming you'll probably want, well, we'll just give an example, like holes every inch, and then in the yellow areas, maybe every 2 inches, green every 3 inches or something like that. So yeah, quite a lot of work that goes into this.
Yeah, the large red circles are probably where 6 of the outer 10 engines will be on this side will be hitting.
Yeah, it looks like they haven't started that on this side yet, but
I think this side they've been working on first and
yeah, I'm surprised they're not
flip-flopping.
doing both at the same time.
A lot of welding happening right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think they're probably not doing both at the same time because they're using. It looks like they're using some kind of laser layout on it because there's a tripod there on the left side that probably has a receiver. It's up on. It's actually up on the deck there, to the bottom of the blue canopy, right next to the yellow line. Down a little bit farther. Yeah,
Is it
right.
right here?
No, to the right. Just to the right of your cursor.
Hold on, let me get another angle of this. This right
Yeah,
here?
so I think there's a laser probe on the top of that is what they're using to lay that all out from.
Yeah, that is pretty impressive. I would love to see this in person, like to up close. Yeah, I can only imagine how much goes into all of this. Um, anything else related to that flame bucket?
And now,
Cool. I guess I'll move back here just a little bit. So the other transport stand for the booster is still being worked on right now. We do see that they've appeared to have started to deliver the sliding. I don't know what you want to call them, but like pedestals basically for that the clamps sit on top of. So those slide in and out of the holes right here. So there's 20 of those. It appears that they've delivered at least 3 of them. I imagine they're still en route. But yeah, so basically they had the original ones and they've upgraded those to stainless steel. I'm guessing that will probably help them last a bit longer. So without the stainless steel ones, I'm assuming they probably ran into issues where the friction surface was starting to have some issues where it's not retracting the way they want it to. So they're like, all right, well, we gotta change this out for stainless steel. So I imagine something like that happened. But yeah, in general, I think for most applications that they have going on down here, stainless steel is probably better, even though it's far more expensive. Keeping these things from rusting and not having to constantly paint things is probably more ideal.
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed on those 3 new arms, that it seems like I don't know if it's going to be specific or if it's just compatible, but the end of them is much narrower, and I'm wondering if that has anything to do with Block 2 booster clamp redesigns, particularly given the fact that we kind of are seeing some differences in the launch mount that might require different hardware, but they don't have that like kind of like T shape even before the clamps are attached. So it seems like
Yeah.
it's a bit of a precursor maybe to being boosted Block 2 compatible, even if it has like an attachment point that still makes it work with a version 1.
Yeah, that makes sense actually, because these have holes in a square pattern, and I don't know, these aren't really, don't have that same pattern, right?
no, they're off. I think it's 6 in, but they're spanning the entire length closer to the edge. You
Right.
can just barely make them out on some of them.
Yeah, so that's interesting. And they did install stainless steel ones on the other two transport stands, right? Or just one of them?
Just one.
Yeah, and I'm guessing they probably look different than this.
Yeah. This looks very much like the top on that structural test stand where those clamps are attaching.
Yeah, that's gonna be very interesting to see how those clamps, the actual design of those clamps changes. Um, it's something that I've kind of been thinking about, in my little three-part series, wondering how they're going to address the issues with not only the clamps but the hold down arms as well. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see, and we'll probably get some hints of what changes they're making as they install these. So yeah, that'll be exciting. And obviously, I guess with this being strictly for version 2 boosters, they're probably not in a whole lot of a rush to get it finished.
Yeah, it should be a
All right.
good proxy for when we start seeing 18s. Well, 18 will be pretty far along before this is done or needed.
Yeah, agreed. Moving on over to another area over here, we do have more of the workstations for the Star Factory being constructed. Not really a whole lot to talk about with those, but um, just endless workstations being constructed in this area. I think this is probably a new one that wasn't here in the previous week, just given the way this looks. This looks like they just recently finished welding this.
Yeah, that's the stand where they actually did the assembly. The one on the right was probably just moved off of the actual assembly jig, waiting for it to roll in.
Yeah, man, I would love to see what the Star Factory looks like on the inside right now, and what percentage of the way they are with building out all of these workstations.
Yeah, with the number of these ring stands that we've seen move in, it's pretty crazy. Especially and we kind of missed out with there was another prefabricated ring that was about where that pickup truck is, that rolled into the factory this week, but we were able to catch a glimpse of it in last week's low altitude flyover.
Hmm. Yeah, they do have some other interesting items down here, right? Are these for the Mega Bay?
Yeah, they said those bear resemblance to the elevators that they have in Mega Bay 1 for working on the booster chines. So it seems like maybe they're going to outfit some additional infrastructure to work on more boosters at a time, because
Yeah.
not every chine had those built into their tests or into the workstations.
Okay.
V2, V2.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. On that note, they're probably also going to have to retrofit one of those workstations at one point, um, in order to be able to lift those V2 boosters onto there. Well, I suppose it won't be like a massive change. They'll just have to swap these out. But yeah, that'll be interesting to see once one of those workstations shut down, that they'll probably end up doing that. All right, moving on a little bit. What else do we have at Sanchez that we should discuss? Um, Actually, sorry. Trying to find an image that shows kind of the mid area over here. I'm not sure if there's much over here to talk about. They are still working on not working on the QD arm right now. Um, I find that interesting is that they've kind of stopped all work on this, because there's a lot of work that needs to happen on the inside of this, as far as installing all of the pipes and whatnot. Which, do they move?
Yeah,
I believe this ended up being for the the commodities trench exit.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. Hmm. So they're really stalled on this thing right now. I wonder what the deal with that is.
yeah, it
That's
certainly
one in
doesn't seem to be
Florida.
much. Yeah, it definitely doesn't seem to be a priority for one reason or another. The middle of the section, the only thing that is kind of interesting there, and hopefully they'll install them pretty soon, is that the right in next to those orange panels are the stabilizer arms for the Tower 2 chopsticks, or at least, well, 5 out of the 6 pieces that make them up.
Yeah. I'm wondering what we got going on here. There's some panels that seem to be covered up right now. I've been hoping that maybe we'll see this arm covered in panels, to kind of make it look more like the renders that we saw uh, back when before they even constructed the tower. Basically the chopsticks and the GSE arm had panels on them. I wonder if we'll actually see that happen here or not. It actually would be a horrible idea to do that with the current tower because they've had to make so many changes to it. But I imagine that they may actually be able to install cladding on this, if they're a little bit more confident that the design is finalized on it versus the original tower.
Yeah, I can only think they're doing revisions on the final wrist and hand portion.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's see. Anything else going down here? What about the scrapyard?
Yeah, not a whole lot has been going on. I mean, obviously the remainders of 32 are completely gone. It seems, or maybe a few pieces of scrap here and there. Um, One of the things that we did see that kind of goes towards some of the work that's being done with Mega Bay 1 is that in the middle of the scrapyard there's a really large pedestal tube that to the left. It's kind of in the middle of that pile, by the yellow, by that
This?
telehandler. No, it's a black pipe in right there. Yeah, that was lifted out of Mega Bay 1 the other day. My suspicion is that it's something to do with installation for downcomers on boosters, and maybe it's no longer in Mega Bay 1 because there's going to be changing to the tooling for Block 2. But we really
Yeah.
don't know. We don't really know what it was, but it moved out in the darkness, so we didn't get a very good view of it then, but we can kind of see it now.
Yeah, interesting. I think over the next coming weeks, we'll start to get a lot of action related to those V2 boosters. So that'll be pretty exciting. All right. Well, I guess if there's nothing else really to discuss in this area, I'm sure maybe we have some questions. So I'll let Astro Joe go ahead and shoot those off really quick.
All right. Well, I've got a $5 Canadian super chat from Drew Nar, who wanted me to have a deja vu moment and announce again that Rocket Profit gifted 10 memberships. I had already addressed that, but he wanted me to have a deja vu moment. There was a question from Crane Man about the SQD, which I do believe you did address already. So we'll leave that alone. And I have a number of questions that have come through related to the launch site. So I will hold those off until we get there.
All right. Yeah, I did notice some bunch of launch site questions. Um, uh, y'all get way ahead of us all the time, but that is fine and also expected. Cool. So I guess we'll go ahead and move over to the production site area, where we do have, as we mentioned earlier, um, a mega bay that is full currently. So very interesting that is the case, that they allowed that to happen, because you can easily just move 14 or 15 out of here. But the fact that they have both of those boosters taking up workstations is a sign that we're probably going to see a reflight of a booster sooner rather than later. What do you guys think? I think. Oh, actually, no. Now that we mention it, I think it's pretty clear that 14 or 15 is going to be reflying on Flight 9.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, it's definitely interesting that they've made the choices, but I think when you look at it, moving, kind of taking away Booster 16's location to go anywhere, kind of makes sense why 17 got moved to the middle, because the middle station doesn't really allow for any tank access. So it's really only used for boosters pre-cryo test, and then it's only the corner test, the corner ones where they do even though the middle can do engine install, it seems like they want to do engine install while teams are inspecting tanks and all that stuff after the cryo test. So obviously the 16's waiting on 14 or 15. I think it's very clear 14 is going to be the next one to fly. I doubt 15 would jump its space unless there was some issue with 14, but it's been in there long enough. If there was an issue, I think they would have already kicked it to the rocket garden for long-term storage.
Yeah, I imagine that any changes that they've made to 16, they're probably wanting to install those same changes to 14 and 15. Obviously, we don't know much about what they've done, but it's pretty safe to assume that every new booster is different than the one that came before it. So with that said, I imagine they want to make sure that they're flying the latest version. So even though it's an older booster, they're probably retrofitting it to have those same alterations. And on that note, as I said before, they clearly do not have enough space, and this actually ended up happening sooner than I think most people were expecting, where they would basically run out of space. But yeah, on that note, I'm surprised that 16 hasn't moved back, because they could easily just put it in the rocket garden if they wanted to. But sorry, not 16, was it? Yeah, no, that is 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a bit surprising that they could just move it back, but it seems like they're kind of just not really in a rush to do so. But on that note, they are going to need a larger bay sooner rather than later. I think this is actually going to cause some congestion for quite a while now. And we're probably at least a full year out from what's coming here soon. And we should definitely expect them to start demoing this building here soon. You know what? I got to take a step back. We're gonna pick up where we. I completely forgot something. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and it's been finished since the flyover too.
Yeah, so this is something that I was not sure whether it was going to happen or not, because once it got damaged the first time, I thought for sure that they were going to be like, all right, well, that was a horrible idea. But it appears that they decided to go ahead and redo the mural on this wall, and there actually has been some changes. I don't know if I'm able to show them right now, but this is different than the original one. It seems like they redid the render on this. Let me see if I can pull that up. I'm not sure if I'm able to. But I think what they did here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think now these are V2 ships. Whereas on the original render, I think they had the version 1 ships. So I guess something good came out of this being damaged.
Yeah, I mean, they look like they're tall enough to maybe even be like a Block 3 stretch, but yeah, the forward flaps have definitely been updated to look more like what the current ships look like. I think there's still some things in there. There's some artistic license going on, but it was nice to see the Block 1 forward flaps disappear.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they went pretty quick installing this. I guess it was meant to be that the original ended up getting destroyed. I wonder if there's anything different about this that it will allow it to prevent it from being damaged in the future. Because it got damaged in a basically a windstorm. I'm guessing the wind came in through one side of the building and pushed these out the other side. So
yeah, there's definitely some changes we saw during the process that it looked like the original gypsum board was put on with perhaps maybe just standard screws. When they redid it, they've got those bigger wide washer screws that you kind of see with on the outside of houses when they put foam on the outside. So there's a bigger surface. There's more of them kind of holding it. Plus, it looks like they did one or two layers of skim coat over the top. It's still a pretty rough surface, but it does seem like they've done a few extra layers to try and give the seams and the connections a little bit more strength, so that the wind doesn't just pop the screws through the cladding.
yeah, it's actually interesting that even got damaged in the first place, because when we look at the other side of the building, actually, let me come down here. So I mean, the whole thing is basically closed in. So I'm not really sure how the.
Actually, this side is pretty blow through. If you look at the top level where you can see through the top handrail, all the mesh that's over the top is actually quite
the same
open.
on this. Okay,
Yeah,
so it
that's
did
the
just
same.
blow through the side.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been interesting to be inside of there when that wind pushed through, because that must have been quite the gust that came through there. So on the note, returning to what I was talking about previously, and yeah, you can actually see it a little bit better here. You can see through there. This is probably the first time that we've seen this parking lot mostly empty. So we have been waiting for this for quite some time. Now that they've moved most of their office, or I'm guessing everything that was in here is probably gone now. We do see that they are preparing for demolition. So these excavators have been placed here, and we're expecting that these will be probably used to demolish this building. So as expected, they will start with this first, because in order to drop the high bay, well, I guess we're kind of expecting that when they demolish the high bay, they'll probably try to drop it within its footprint for the most part. However, there is a chance that it'll. I mean, I imagine they'll set it up so that it either falls on itself, or if things go wrong, it'll fall in this area right here. But yeah, either way, you're going to want to clear this area, just in case, to kind of ease the scrapping process once it actually falls. But yeah, they are well in the process of getting rid of this building. I think I'm surprised we haven't seen them start to remove some of the stuff on the outside, like the AC units and all of the containers on the back over here. But I imagine each flyover, it'll become more and more obvious that they're starting to dismantle this building. Very exciting, though. I think I have some hope. Haven't finished with my new office, or set for my show, so I was hoping that we wouldn't see this demolished before my next episode comes out. So got a little bit of hope there that it'll be at least a few weeks until I got to start worrying about that. But yeah, still really exciting. And as I said, the purpose of this obviously is to construct the new Gigabay, which is going to be rather large. And I think there is some question on exactly where it's going to be positioned. Obviously, this area right here will fall within its footprint. However, we don't know if it's going to be against the Star Factory or not. And I personally don't see how that would be possible with the facility in Roberts Road in Florida. I think they can do it, because they'll basically do it right from the start. But I don't know if it's possible for them to do it with this building. So we do know that they're in the process of getting rid of this ugly addition onto the side, which it actually has grown on me, because it's a nice little access way for them to move things out. But we have seen on the inside of this building, so there's some HVAC that goes across here, and they've actually severed the ductwork for that HVAC, and they've also started to create foundations for the columns that are going to go in here. Do you guys want to speak on that a little bit more?
Yeah, it looks like they're, like Zach was saying, the way this building is built, their main structural elements are fine. They're filling in between those for the cladding across the skin.
Yeah, so I mean, basically it seems like they're going to build a wall in here first before they demolish this little part, right?
Yeah, and probably move the door into it, because that's the only tall exit out of Star Factory.
Yeah, and On that note, I think the chances of the Gigabay butting up against this are low because of this door right here. So this is the only door where they're able to move stacked nose cones. Well, I guess this is a combination of issues here. So without the high bay, they don't necessarily have a place where they can stack nose cones on top of the payload section. Well, actually they do. So they've started doing that inside of the Star Factory. And because they're doing that inside of the Star Factory, they will always need an exit that's this size. So I guess one option that they could do is to stack those nose cones onto the payload sections inside of here, but that creates some congestion because all of a sudden now you have something in the way. Like if you need to move a ship off of the workstation and place it onto a transport stand, you will now have to wait for that nose cone stacking to be finished, which I don't know. I guess given the order of operations, they could accomplish that without creating a traffic jam, I guess. But I imagine that you wouldn't want that to be a long-term thing. So given that you do need a door of this height here, I don't think it's possible to construct the Gigabay up against this because you can't move nose cones through here and out a side door. So I think that they're basically clearing space. Honestly, I'm not sure why it's necessary though, because I don't know, unless the Gigabay is going to come all the way up to this line right here. Well, I suppose that's possible that this is something that I've kind of said in previous months, that the parking garage would end up getting deleted, and that wasn't necessarily just an opinion. There was actually confirmation of that from people who actually work at SpaceX, that the plan was to demolish this. So as always, plans tend to change, and it's possible that they decided not to remove the parking garage and instead push the Gigabay forward, so that instead of needing to come into this space, it's actually moving into this area right here. So with that being the case, they probably need to move the driveway over as well. And so for that reason, this part of the building has to go. So yeah, I personally don't expect to see the Gigabay go up against this building, which is a good thing because that means we will still be able to see vehicle sections move from this building into wherever they need to go. I'm really excited for that because I was hoping that we wouldn't ever see that happen at Starbase, at least, where things basically go from the Star Factory straight into the bay and we never see it until a completed vehicle comes out. That would be quite tragic. So I'm fingers crossed that I'm correct about this because the last thing I would want to see at Starbase is that building attached to the structure. It's okay down in Florida because we won't get to see any of that stuff anyways. So yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that this is the case, that that the building won't actually butt up against the Star Factory. Let's see. What else do we have? Anything else Star Factory related that we should touch on? I mean, this thing is pretty much completed as far as the external structure goes, so I'm not sure if there's really much to touch on.
Yeah, not really. I mean, there's there's some small projects here and there, but it's just kind of a maintenance thing, nothing of really good development.
Right. This is new, right? Is this just
Yeah.
an office building for construction of this?
Yeah, it seems
yeah.
to be.
It looks like it was one of the construction offices that was closer to Highway 4 by the office.
Okay, yeah. And right now, down in this area, we did mention this in previous weeks, they are planning to construct an apartment building right here. So that is what they've done in this lot, is all of the mobile homes that were in this area have been moved to that lot that we talked about earlier. and they've now begun construction of that apartment building. So you can see they are drilling piles down here. So basically, I think the entire bottom is the bottom level of this supposed to be a garage?
Yes.
Yeah, part of it is the northwest and northeast surfaces seem to have potentially actual spaces that are not parking garage on them, but the parking garage enters off of San Martin, and then kind of makes a U shape within most of the interior of the first floor. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's nice. I mean, personally, I guess you could say this about the entire village that, I personally do not like being this close to where I work. Like even being here requires you to take at least a little bit of a trip. But yeah, being walking straight from this apartment building and through the front door of this, to me, would not be ideal. But for the purposes of ease of transportation for Starbase employees, this is really really nice. And the amount of employees that you can fit in an apartment building versus, I imagine the amount of people that could be in that apartment building might be equal to the entire neighborhood, if I had to guess.
Yeah,
Pretty high.
the renders suggest that it's 3 levels high, so it seems like it's going to house quite a few people.
Yeah, that's exciting. And from here, they're kind of locked in as far as how much housing they're actually able to build in this area. I suppose eventually they could throw another apartment building right here if they wanted to, and yeah, but I think that's pretty much all they have left, other than the other housing lots that they have yet to construct on. They are starting down in this area. Obviously, you can see the remaining lots here. They've started the townhomes down here, and there are only a few remaining lots left that they haven't built homes on yet. But yeah, the village is certainly filling up.
Yeah, and even they're down over on Memes across the street from, or that's not Memes, that's Esperson, but across from those apartment complexes, those 2 lots are actually 6-unit properties. They're not they're
These?
not, yeah, those are essentially, there's three connected apartments, and with two buildings next to each other on those. Very
The
small.
triplexes.
Yeah, triplexes. They're very small, probably 1-bedroom studios or something fairly small.
This is starting to get a very university feel.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It feels like a college campus.
Well, with a lot of their workforce, that's what they expect.
Yeah, that's very, very true. um, it looks like the pool is nearing completion, at least the pool house itself. Um, so I guess we should probably expect to see them eventually start on the rec center, which we're expecting will probably be in this area, right?
Yeah. I'm kind of expecting it to be 2 stories so that you can just walk straight out to the pool and not up a bunch of stairs.
Yeah, for sure. You know what? I feel like that pool's kind of small.
It is.
I mean, I guess they may not have as much free time during the day to actually go in the pool. Um, but I'm still
That
surprised it's not a little bit larger.
that looks more like a party pool to me, but hey.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I think it is about time for us to move over to the launch site. I did originally say I was going to have a hard stop at 2 o'clock, but we actually started the show late. So I guess I will make an additional 20 minutes. Obviously, we don't really have a choice, but let's go ahead and move over to Pad B, which is starting to make some pretty intense progress. I'm going to try and find us a good view looking down on the flame trench. Actually, I'm not going to start with flame trench. I'm going to start with the gantry structure that is next to the trench. So give me a second while I try and find a view that has a better angle of it. kind of like this one. Yeah, so they are slowly building up that gantry structure, which is looking more intense by the day. So they have the first level of that right here. I'm not sure if I think there'll probably be a second level potentially. But yeah, they've gotten the what do you call this?
Decking, corrugated.
Yep.
Yeah, corrugated panels down here. So they'll probably pour a concrete deck onto this, and have lots of internal pipework and plumbing and whatnot inside of this. And we have started to see the first signs of that. If we look at it from another direction, this might be a good one. So we can see that they have installed. You know what? I want a better view. Let's try this. Yeah, so they have started to install some high pressure gas cylinders down here. And I hate to tell y'all deniers, but this is continuing to feed into my thoughts about this being a interchangeable launch mount. So I'm assuming this has something to do with the, well, I guess I'll rephrase that. So in order to make that interchangeable system work, basically everything that would be inside the launch mount needs to be outside of it. Because in order to move it, you don't want to have to disconnect a whole bunch of things. You're going to want everything to be external. And for one, we're already kind of expecting that there will be far less plumbing anyways, or far less mechanical systems inside of that launch mount anyways, considering that we're probably 95% confident that the Raptor QDs are going away. So everything will have to be done through the booster QD. And as far as we know, there could potentially actually end up being 2 QDs. We just really don't know yet at this point. But all of those systems have to be outside of the launch mount in order to make that work. So the first components of that, in my opinion, are now in place. And I do believe we're going to see a massive amount of additional high pressure gas equipment installed out here. So it's started right now with these first 6 gas tanks right here. If I had to guess, actually I don't know. I'm trying to think of what exactly those would be used for. I mean, there's tons of options. Obviously you have your COPV loading. You have, I guess, valve actuation. So if they're using nitrogen gas to actuate valves, that could be storage for that system as well too. You also have your, I was going to say your CO2 fire suppression system, but they probably will not need that on the version 2 boosters if they don't have, without the engine shielding. So yeah, if anything, it probably has to do with starting up those engine startup, basically. So given that they'll basically perform all engine startup through those QD, through the 1 or 2 QDs, however many there are, instead of sending that gas basically all the way from the tank farm, like let me take a second over here. So with pad A, this is much closer. So these gas banks right here are basically responsible for starting up the outer 20 engines. I believe some of the COPV load comes from here too as well. But you know, when they start up those outer engines, you're basically having a gas feed come straight from these underground into the launch mount and starting up those outer 20 engines. So given how far away this is from, sorry, let me go back and find another angle. Maybe I'll find one in here. Yeah. So given how far away that is, the actual tank farm is from the launch mount, you don't want to have to send it way over there. So instead, it's better to use the tank farm to load storage, load your high pressure gas storage inside of here instead of sending it super far away. So I think that may be what's going on here. But yeah, this is some really interesting. In my opinion, probably the most interesting part of the actual launch mount system itself is going to be inside of this gantry, and that means this is going to require some additional protection. So the actual launch mount itself will butt up against this, which means they'll have to like put a massive shield wall against this. Um, I don't expect it would receive as much damage as it would. Well, yeah, I guess just in general, we probably wouldn't expect as much damage to this as like the tower side because of the direction that the booster is going to be leaving. So I think most of, if they do a tower avoidance maneuver or pitch over maneuver, whatever you want to call it, it's not necessarily going to be going in this direction. So probably not as much protection needed as you would expect. However, in general, a structure of this size, you could put some pretty thick steel panels all over this thing. Probably far thicker than what they made the actual booster QD out of. So the booster QD has, I want to say, about 6 inches of shielding on most of it. We know for sure that they've added 3-inch thick panels onto the outside of it, but we don't know how thick the actual shell of the booster QD is. So I want to say at least 6 inches of shielding on it. So you could easily match that or even greater. I don't think that's necessary, but yeah, about 6 inches or so of shielding all around this thing would add some pretty insane protection for it. Moving on to the trench, I'll let Winnie, I'll take that away.
Sure. So right now we can see the layout of where the walls are going to be, and like Zach was saying earlier, they're essentially going to be just like the base of the OLIT, where you have the 2 steel external walls sandwiching the concrete. So what the gap between the north wall and the tower is going to go there is a bit of a mystery. But
Are these embed plates? Because they
yes.
don't look like it.
No, they're
color's weird.
stripped. There's plywood on top for they look like they're setting them in a little bit so that after they weld it, when they grout it, it'll then flush up to the same height as the rest of the floor, is what, because on the circle on the right side for one of the sumps, you can see from the framing that the concrete is probably going to be proud of. All of these embeds will sort of be inset.
Right, and just to expand on that a little bit, we did talk about in previous weeks that because of the way this, I mean, just in general, having a trench like this, the water is going to activate long before. When I say that, I mean like 3 to 5 seconds before ignition. So, and it's also going to continue running for a pretty good time after the booster actually clears the pad. So you're going to have a lot of water buildup down here, and you got to be able to pump it out. So that's what these are for. So the one, how many are there?
There's 2 for sure, or there's 2 pairs of 2. Um, then we have the 5 or the 10 in the center for the flame deflector, which is looking very much like the sub-assembly is going to be like what they built at Massey's, those triangular shape pieces to support the sides with the passageways between so they can get up to the underside. And strangely, they're putting up formwork for on the floor of the slope section, so potentially they might be doing this as one monolithic pour, which was going to be insane.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because they have holes in these, so they can pour through those, right?
yeah, and you can see right where your cursor is where about where it's transitioning. There's a sharper line on that
Yeah,
edge.
the other side of the trench, it's a little bit more clear just because of the sun angles. You can see where the crease is a little bit more, both in that as well as the wall embeds. But yeah, right there is where the junction is.
And this also shows that the floor of it is sort of sunk down slightly because you can see the edge of those plywood plates. Yeah. And right
Yeah,
across where
that's
your cursor is.
over here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm
The-
gonna try and find one more better angle of that. Oh wow, yeah, this is actually a really good one. So you can see the slope right there. That is going to be a massive concrete job.
Yeah. And on the opposite side, well, this side shows how thick it is by the green pipe as well. It's coming up.
How long do you think that will take? Because this is far more concrete than is on the pad A, that job. They did that in two separate sections basically. I think that
It's a,
they were 8 feet and 5 feet or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but
yeah. This is probably a bit over 4 times the OLIT's cap, pile cap that they, and gosh, I want to say that was 12 or 14 hours. Because I thought they started around midnight and finished afternoon.
yeah. So you think that this will probably, and I'm gonna go back for like a more overhead view, um, probably start in the middle and then work out.
Yeah. It'll
How many
probably
pumper
be
trucks do you think we'll have?
4. And
I'm,
they're
yeah,
nowhere near ready from looking where you'd place them and where the mixed trucks would be able to come in.
Yeah, I was actually thinking closer to 6 or even, but I think the argument against that is I'm not even sure that you'd be able to find space to put 6 trucks in there. Other than I feel like I feel like 4 trucks won't be able to reach all of it unless they move trucks around at some point when they like do the middle and then move the trucks to where they can hit the ramp more or something. But it's going to be a lot.
They have some
yeah.
very high volume pumper trucks that we haven't seen at the site yet, which
I
probably could reach that far.
I feel like the best way to do this would be to mix on site.
Yeah,
I mean, it's quite a big setup just for one job, but like that's what I would do. Because if you're relying on that's hundreds of loads that you're going to have to deliver for this. Like instead, you could use this entire area over here as a mixing station, and then just send it straight over there. That would allow you to do it in probably less than 12 hours, right?
definitely. Highway 4, I mean, you're one collision away from
Shutting the whole thing
stopping.
down. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So on that note, I would expect to see this entire area down here. So basically, you would need to finish this trench wall. Maybe, actually, not necessarily. But basically, this entire area down here would have to be cleared and have a batch mixing plant down here, essentially.
Yeah, because when they're doing skyscraper foundations, they usually have 2 or 3 pre-planned routes for the trucks. And
Which is not an option here.
no,
Yeah, that is a good point about the potential for, a collision on the highway to completely ruin this job. Um, so yeah, I think that is far more likely that we'll actually see that a mixing plant here, um, which is actually kind of cool. I mean, I guess the only downside of that is that we won't. Well, I guess the pumper trucks will still be there, so we'll still actually know when it's happening. Um, but yeah, how long do you think? How far out do you think that is?
couple of weeks, 2 weeks maybe. It's
Yeah,
mainly the grounds aren't ready for, and especially with, well, we haven't got to it yet, but the
we can. Let's just go ahead and
the
go to it right now.
yeah, the Deluge trench.
Yeah, we'll work our way back in this direction. So, um, we do have, since the last show, they have placed all of those water tanks. So, I'm going to take this opportunity to disagree with something Alex said the other day, which was that these tanks will potentially be used as basically the gas generation for these, and I don't think that's going to happen, given that they already have vents spots for the vents on top of these, or not vents, but
The gas injection.
yeah, exactly. So I'm pretty sure that this is already set in stone that these are water tanks. But given we can
They're all
actually
water
see,
tanks, but
right?
these would be the ones feeding the heat exchangers. But we'll see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
right.
I mean, let me just take a step back really quick, and I'm going to show Massey's. So basically, this is kind of an identical situation to what they have at Massey's. Let me
Right.
get a good angle of it. So basically, you have your gas generation right here, which is feeding into the top of these tanks to force water out. So basically, you have this is the part that's still missing. I'll go back over to that. Yeah. So, any thoughts on where that might end up going?
Since there haven't put any curbs for mounting them, I was originally thinking they'd be in the gap between the tall or the longer and the shorter, and then some on the other side of the short tanks. So, but yeah, the lack of any mounting hardware is definitely questionable. So you have all the
Yeah,
nitrogen tanks.
they do have some. Man, it is often difficult to find the perfect angle to show certain things. Let me see if I can find a good view of it. I think this one at the end might be the best. So they do have all of these curves right here. BJ, you were talking about these last night during the show and tell. Do you have thoughts on these?
Yeah, nothing that makes sense though. I mean, the four sets of square pedestals kind of screams something vertical, whether it be vertical tanks, more vaporizers, but I'm not familiar enough of whether there'd be any type of vertical oriented replacement for those shell and tube heat exchangers that are at Massey's to kind of take their place, and they're a little bit far away from the water tanks. So, but the kind of the where they are near to the nitrogen systems kind of maybe suggests that maybe there is some kind of system that I haven't researched enough yet. But like
They
Alex was saying, there's nothing. The lack of other types of pedestals near the water tanks is kind of not giving us hints.
they do have vertical heat exchangers. They look very similar to some of the stuff at the gas plant. So I mean,
Yeah,
theoretically,
one
they
of
could
the.
have. Yeah, go Zach.
Sorry, go ahead. I was going to
Yeah, no,
say that makes things slightly difficult, but I actually take it back because initiating the gas generation is actually done with compressed gas tanks, right? Compressed nitrogen tanks. So that would be these right here. What they use to start the flow of water through those heat exchangers, right?
or there's a pump because they have to pressurize those vertical tanks to at least the same pressure that the water is in the deluge tanks.
Oh,
So
so pressurizing these.
yeah, so that they can force out the nitrogen. It has to be a higher pressure since you need a pressure gradient when you're
Yeah.
vaporizing it.
Yeah, so these two are basically supplying nitrogen for these tanks, and then these two are for this. So we'll probably see two separate banks of heat exchangers down here somewhere.
Yeah, unless, like BJ was saying, there could be four large vertical heat exchangers.
That would certainly be interesting. I mean, I guess as far as optimizing space, that would be ideal. I was kind of expecting that once that they may potentially. I mean, you got this big open space down here. Um, they could theoretically go down here, but I imagine the ones for these tanks, you'll probably want them closer to these tanks. But you do
Yeah,
have space over here as well too.
yeah, that's the lack of curbs, and on that side, there's room on both outer edges. There's pedestals for one more tank.
Oh
So
right, yeah. So there's five. So there's. Hold on. Let me. Can you see him from this angle?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean the pedestals are there for the small set of tanks. So there's room for the fifth one. The sixth one has the embeds, but we've not yet seen the pedestals. So whether or not they actually build some of those, it's hard to tell yet.
Wait for. Okay, sorry. So you're talking about on this side. There's one right. There's a
The
embed
embeds
right
are
here.
yeah. Embeds are there for a fifth tank on that side, but unlike the short set where we actually have pedestals for a fifth tank that are already in place, the bigger ones we don't have those additional ones. So it's obviously capable for a fifth tank, but when that fifth tank is coming is I've been questioning whether it's just a future expansion or what the deal is on it.
Right. Yeah, I imagine maybe they just don't want it in there yet because they. Um. Well, I suppose there's not really a reason not to have it in there now that they've gotten that trench covered up. Um, one reason I can think of to not do it is because you got to slide these pipes underneath there, and it may be a little bit more difficult to do that with 5 of them in there instead of 4.
Well, yeah, I mean the bigger pipes look like they may actually be the may not be underneath the tank, similar to how at Massey's where the main collection to supplies were out at the end. It seems like potentially that all these will kind of individually come out the ends and then come into and then form in.
Whoa, but hold on down that thought because I'm pretty sure the. Dang it! Do we have an angle that'll even show this?
Yeah, the outlets are above the concrete there, just to the south of the trench. But
I
there's
thought they were
just
in the
like
middle.
no, well, they are, but they're not. They're off center, just towards the south side of the trench. They're not all the way at the ends, but similar, like like all the ones at McGregor, all the ones at Massey's, the actual water outlet comes straight down, it's parallel to the tank, and then goes out the end. I'd
I have
imagine
an
that they're
idea.
going because those the way the trench is being dug right now, the main water lines are going to be perpendicular south of the tanks.
I was going to pull up an image from the low altitude flyover from last week, but I don't have those images on hand actually, so I can't do that. Um, so sorry. You're thinking that they could put them on the ends right here, or you're saying there's
or
outlets on here, or is it right over on this side?
the outlets where your cursor is, and have the pipe run parallel with the tank underneath it, sort of like they're doing at
Yeah.
Massey's.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Because they could the pipes can just go underneath the pedestals, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're open.
Huh. Yeah, I suppose that is a lot easier. Um, in a way, um, having them all joined together as one manifold is, in my opinion, slightly easier. But um, yeah, because then you have just one manifold instead of pipes basically headers going onto that manifold. Um,
Yeah,
so that's
I just don't see that based off of the kind of the architecture they've been doing at all of the other sites. That's not how they're doing it at McGregor. It's not how they're doing it at Massey's. So it doesn't make sense to do it here if all of the other systems that have very similar setups. Why they would change that, I don't know.
yeah, for sure. On that note, they have started to deliver some of the actual water pipes, which we can see down here. This morning, they delivered a very long one. but these are as far as this flyover goes, I think the only two that we can actually see down here.
Yeah.
Yep, but that's all we've seen delivered, even from the ground based.
Yeah, this is, I mean, even in its current state, this is already starting to look fairly impressive. They still have to cover the rest of these trenches down here, which you can see these covers right here. I'm surprised they haven't done this yet. I think maybe they're still doing some work down there, although it
Yeah, well, in the
does seem like
steel,
they've been finished for a while.
well, in the steel, the steel beams that will potentially cover span those joints just arrived 2 days ago. They're up by one of the by the dirt pile actually at the construction entrance, or at least we suspect right there next to the white fuel tank right there. Those appear to be the beams that'll allow the covers to be put on the expansion loops.
And yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
the zebra pattern, the black and paint, seem to match the width of the cross members.
hmm Yeah, that is man, we have so much more to talk about as far as this goes. I don't even know where to start. So this trench is being expanded down into this direction. So they do have this um, bunker down here, which was one of the first parts of this entire system that was formed. And let me find the best angle for that. I suppose this is a good one. So if y'all remember in the past, this was actually a solid wall right here, and the only two penetrations through it were here and here.
Yep.
Yep, but the
Yeah,
other
so
ones,
these were the preformed penetrations through the wall, and they've appeared to have cut another one through here. So we were wondering if they were going to go up and over the wall, but it seems like they are now going straight through it, which is a lot more ideal, I guess. So the piping for both the launch tower and the launch mount will come in through here. And just as a refresher, these ones, this is all of the methane side, and then the LOX, liquid oxygen, is on this side. And then, do you know, Alex, have you said what the smaller ones are for?
Not yet. For a while, I thought they might just be for the ASU for getting nitrogen and LOX back, but now some other pipes have shown up at the gantry that I'm second guessing myself.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll return on that thought in a future episode. Yeah, but so they're basically going to come through here, and they'll kind of cross over each other. Actually, I will go ahead and show what we're kind of expecting that to kind of look like, because they've already done it down here, which is very odd. So it would basically be sorry, the word I want to use, I can't really say on this show. a cluster, basically, of pipes coming out of that bunker will look very similar to this, where you have some being directed towards the launch mount and some being directed towards the tower. So that is basically what we'll end up seeing coming at. Man, I lost that image. This one. We'll basically see that coming out of here, part way going through to the tower, and then another coming through here. They have to cut through this wall too, huh?
Yeah.
Do you think they'll go through here, through this one, for the piping to the tower, or?
Yeah, both of those openings go to the tower. That one, where your hand is the high pressure gas, and that one is for the cryogenic.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess this whole thing can be underground. I was originally expecting that we'd probably see something on top of this, but I no longer think that's the case.
Yeah, at McGregor's they have these types of vaults for some of their. Well, they have one for their Deluge in front of their new vertical stands they're building,
Yeah.
where they're keeping all the valves and stuff at
hmm
least shielded.
Yeah, this is pretty crazy. I would I mean, I expected most of this, but honestly, I wasn't expecting it to be quite so compact like it is. Like it's just uh, far more impressive than the original launch site or the Pad A. But yeah, continuing on, we do have the trench that continues another expansion loop over here, and then they've started the trench to join with this expansion loop. So this one is being formed out right now, and they've extended that off of the one that's going along the outer perimeter of the flame trench. So yeah, tons of work going on with that. They do have another trench. Actually, have they? Did they construct this trench already? They haven't done that, right? I know they
Stubbed
have
out,
the coming from the tower, right?
yeah, right around where your hand is. There's
But they haven't done the actual trench itself yet.
not no, because the 8800 was in the area when they were last working on this.
Right. Yeah. So in the meantime, they've been doing tons of electrical work for all of the conduit, um, which I guess we'll move over to that right now, which you can see just a massive amount of electrical conduit coming from these two buildings. So you got one run coming from here, and then you have another coming from this. So any thoughts why they need two buildings? So one of them is comms, right? And then the other one's power.
Yeah, and it seems excessive compared to the previous than Tower A.
Agreed. Yeah, I did originally think that maybe some of this could be end up used for the air separation plant, which would make sense why they need so much of it. But I'm starting to wonder if any of this will be directly connected to that air separation plant. I honestly would not be surprised if they have to run a new line all the way to the launch site for that. I think they can do it without doing that, but I wouldn't be surprised if they have to add more electrical going to the launch site for the air separation plant, which will eventually be down in this area.
Yeah, it's will be probably twice the load of the draw works at full power draw. It's
I don't think the Drawworks is the biggest load out here, though.
it has a high surge load because I think it has 1500 horsepower electric motors.
And I forget the rating for the cryo pumps.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right. Those are pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but keep in memory, almost all the cryo pumps are going to get power from its own bunker that's being built down there too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but what we should have also covered was this trench right here being constructed in front of the integration tower, which y'all can get a good idea of how deep this is. So is this like a concrete blinding layer right here?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so they've dug this trench out and they've got little concrete floor that they've poured at least here. And they're continuing this trench over here. So basically, all of the water pipes that are coming from the actual deluge system will go underground in front of the tower and then into the system inside of the trench. So that will be pretty interesting to see how that ends up looking. This, in my opinion, is going to be the defining part of whether or not the launch mount is easily interchangeable, because it really depends on how this system connects to that structure. So that'll be something to look out for. And kind of expanding on something that Alex has touched on earlier, this massive gap in between the walls right here, I think potentially could be related to that. So if you need pipes to turn down and go underneath here, that would be where that happens. So that's one thing we'll have to, because I remember we talked about this, Alex. You said there's no way the pipes are going to the bottom of the trench and across, but if it's going to happen, this would be necessary in order for it to work. Yeah.
And
So
the amount of foundation they're putting and how deep the pipes are is actually more evidence for the top deck moving, since they're driving all their infrastructure well beneath the surface.
yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good point. Um, because I mean, you're basically you don't want to have to build a huge bunker like this, and even if you did, well, I suppose it works fine for this stuff. I mean, man, imagine a 1,000-ton thing moving across this is, well, actually, it's not really that big of a deal because booster, the booster on top of transport stand is approaching that anyways, probably somewhere around,
Yeah.
800 tons or so. So yeah,
But
not quite a big deal. But down here,
you'll
go ahead.
you'll have the whole load will be directly above it, so the dirt will distribute the load, but it's deep enough that you don't even have to worry about it.
Right.
It's-
Yeah. And you're not. I guess the difference is that it's the dirt is supporting the load versus here the actual walls of the trenches are supporting it, and those are
and and
reinforced.
you're only going to have maybe one or two axles at any given time going across that trench.
Right.
Meanwhile,
Versus the entire load being
exactly.
yeah. I'm still wondering if people are converting to this side or not, but there are more and more signs every single week. I'm so excited for this. This is like, my favorite time in Starbase history was when they were building the original or Pad A. So it's exciting watching all of this stuff come together.
Yeah, and there's a cubby holes on the opposite side under the gantry where SPMTs can.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, that was something I'm not sure if we mentioned on previous weeks. I think we did, maybe.
you
Well, I
can
need an
sort of
angle to
see
show
it.
that. I need a better angle. I don't think you'll see it from here. Nope.
Yeah.
Maybe. Hold on. Let me go to the tank farm view and see if I can see it from that side. No, we're not going to be able to. Sorry. I guess you can kind of see it. Not really.
You,
Hmm.
you can see it on the upper level, the
Yeah.
two
Right.
wide bays.
So you have the
Yeah,
wide gap here, small gap there, another wide gap there. It's basically if you are going to pull an SPMTs through here, they need to be able to pass underneath the structure just a little bit. So these gaps seem to be perfectly sized for SPMTs to fit through there. So that's
yeah.
interesting for sure.
And that wall was heavily reinforced, so that's supporting all those beams.
Yeah, that makes sense. Man, this is going to be exciting. I've jumped around so much. What else am I missing down here?
I mean, I think we got most
We
of
could
it.
talk for hours about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
we ignored all of this side.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and I guess talk about this tank farm. I don't know how deep we want to get into it, but
This
I
has got to
think
be an
you guys
episode
have
for you,
been,
Zach.
yeah, straight up. I think you guys. I'll let you guys talk through this part because I know you guys have been very deep into it. So I'll let you decide how much you want to say about everything going on here.
Well, the interesting part is up at the upper center. They're starting the methane side by the crane. There's the two skids, one directly beneath by the crane. Yeah, which is exactly the same layout as they have between on the lock side, except
Is that like here?
yeah, exactly. That's one, and then but above the kettle boilers, there's the other one. Yeah, so Meanwhile, where the lock side took about a month for them to do that plumbing, this just shows up on site with a few connections.
Yeah,
Then,
they're actually fast with that.
yeah, then on the lock side, it's looking like they're going to have the full 9 pumps. They have the 4, then they have the 5 bases sitting there, which
Yeah, I see 1, 2, then 3, 4, 5. Well, why is this one offset?
I
I'm
think it's
guessing
just worth it
these
for.
aren't even positioned yet, right? They're just here.
Yeah,
Yeah, the first two
So
look
these
like
two
they're
are
in, yeah,
positioned.
those two look like they're in place. The other 3 are still in the work.
yeah, and like here you can see on the lower part by the stands are some elbows and those are various parts for the lower section where they have the basket strainer and the large valve.
Hmm.
So yeah, the less complicated skids they look like they're assembling on site. And how these hippos are getting incorporated is not very clear because you can the right now it looks like the feed's going to the 2 new large heat exchangers. There's no real mechanism yet to connect the hippos because those 2 upper pipes with the elbows in the middle.
Are you talking about these?
No, straight down, down a little bit more, and then head up uh, towards the middle. There's on that pipe rack. There's keep going to the
There's so
left.
much going on.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Right there. Those are like the feed and the supply and the feed for one of the heat exchangers. And then directly underneath it, there's a similar arrangement for the other one.
So
But
yeah, I mean, man, we can go so deep into this.
yeah, no,
um,
this is
super
a bit of
complicated, and they're
yeah,
still missing additional heat exchangers down here, right? Like
yeah. There's at least
just
one
one.
more. I can't tell if they put embeds where that crane is or not. 'Cause there's room for another
I
one
don't.
there.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing it there. I think there was only embeds for the 4, so and we've only seen stands for that one remaining one that didn't
Yeah,
show up yet.
yeah, and we can
super
go for it.
complicated because we don't know if this is a multi-stage system or if it's a separate system for the tower and the launch mount, or sorry, the booster and the ship, or if this possibly uh, return from like detank or potentially even um,
Loading.
from the air separation plant, like from the air separation plant to storage. So many different possibilities that could be going on down here.
Yeah, and or
But sorry, go ahead.
no, go on.
I was going to say the cool thing, which I am honestly pretty excited about, is the uh, this vent right here, and I want to find a better angle of this, which is going to be difficult because of the way I have these images arranged. Let me see if I can find. That's not what we want.
The right angles though.
I need to look at it from a certain direction. Is this going to show it? Nope. Um, how about this one? Yeah, there we go. So we have this big huge vent right here, which man, there was definitely a better shot at that. Um,
Yeah, there's one where we could see the holes in.
yeah, let me keep searching a little bit. I'll just be patient. Nope, that's definitely not it, and that's not it. Um, all right, I'm gonna try one more thing really quick because I break these images up by location, but then I also have long range photos that show like the full site at one time, so it might be in there. This one? No. Okay. Well, maybe we just have to work with what we got.
Yeah, I know the file name. I know the SN7 folder file name, but your file names are different, so I can't
They
even
are
point in the
different.
right direction.
I renamed.
I found the one that
everything.
yeah, I found the one that Alex is referring to, where we can actually see the holes in that pipe that's in the middle.
What am I doing? I am lost now. Sorry. I usually don't like to switch through images as quickly, but here we are. Actually, I'm gonna, y'all just have to deal with this because I'm gonna cycle through these until I find it because I know it's here. This one?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
it's right on the it's right on the edge of the photo, so it's not ideal for the whole
Yeah.
space, but it shows that really
for the
well.
little thumbnail. Yeah, so this is basically a massive vent down here. So y'all will remember that during the propellant loading, man, am I gonna really do this? I'm sorry, I have to do it. So the with the kettle boilers down here, the methane ones, the vents for these are at an angle, so they part of it goes down and part of it goes up. Actually, I think the bottom side are closed off, right? They only go straight up. They only go up.
They only go up with the boosters going east, and the ship one goes to the west.
Yeah, and then on the liquid oxygen side, it comes down. The vents come down through here, and so you end up actually getting, for one, a pretty large cloud shooting up on the methane side, and then basically a lake of a cloud that kind of forms down here, and it actually sometimes comes over the launch site as well too. But it seems like that is something they don't want happening anymore. And in order to prevent that from happening, it seems like they're planning to vent that in a different direction, which is actually straight up. So that's going to be very interesting. So basically, you have two large fans right here, which are going to be pulling in air from the sides, and then everything is going to vent into this box. So you have your two vents from these heat exchangers, which you can see there's some pipes down here, which will come off of those. So, it comes off the pipe and then it goes up. So it'll turn into the box. This one turn into the box. And then you also have, what are these from?
Probably when they're back liquid, when they're draining the pipes.
Prime up.
Anytime they're draining. So when they're charging, when they're cooling the pipework, pre-prop load and post-prop load.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
the LOX vent that is up by the fluid bunker.
Right. Yeah. So basically, and on this side you can see an opening here as well too. So this will probably be for the other heat exchangers. So all of that venting will come into this box and then be pushed up, straight up. That's going to be crazy. You're basically just going to see a column of gas coming up out of this, which I guess the question is how much it'll actually be, because, well, for one, when you have nine LOX pumps instead of 5, basically, I mean, that's like 40% more gas, because you're loading in 30 minutes versus 45. So you're increasing the amount of venting that's happening, but you're also diluting it with air. So it'll be interesting to see what that actually looks like. I don't know how much it's actually going to dilute it, because I mean, it's
not much,
that?
because not very much, because they have these at Massey's to the right of the static fire stand, a small version.
Yeah, so it's just going to be going straight up into the air, which will actually look kind of cool. And we don't know what's going to happen with the methane side, but I imagine there'll probably be something similar somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, they have a lot
Which,
of room still.
yeah, that's going to be a very interesting change, but it'll make the launch site a bit clearer, which is nice. I mean, honestly, I don't think it's a huge deal when you're loading propellant. Like you do kind of want to be able to see things during that final 40 seconds in the countdown. But I guess just having the launch site clear in general um, is helpful. But you're going to be able to see that from pretty far away. Uh, I mean, with it just spraying straight up in the air like that and all combined into one location versus being spread out over multiple vents, that's going to look pretty crazy. Um, yeah, so we'll see something similar on the methane side, but methane side in general, a lot a lot left to be done here. So I think there's far more questions on the methane side than there are on the liquid oxygen side. Would you say?
Yeah, the methane side though is starting to come together. Hopefully they have a recondenser on this side. Which
Yeah, I do wonder if these potentially are that recondensing, or have you have any additional thoughts on what these vertical tanks are?
they're either vertical tanks or condensing towers, but I haven't seen any liquid nitrogen go to them. And so far, the skid next to it looks more like a fill skid than a. It does have a lot of valves on it. Eh, let's wait a few weeks.
Yeah. Either way, super intense what's going on down here, and I've said before, uh, the people who are in charge of this stuff seem to be a bit more active on Twitter than they have been in the past, or X, whatever you want to call it. And the anytime an image is posted related to this, they will respond to it, and you can tell that they're super excited about all of this. So while it is kind of a cluster down here, it is a vast improvement on the original tank farm. So they seem to be extremely excited about all of this stuff coming together. And with the potential delay between launches right now, I think they're taking full advantage of the time that they have and getting as much work done as possible. I mean, pretty much as soon as equipment shows up on location, they're installing it right away. So, yeah, I can only imagine um, the excitement being able to basically take this massive IKEA set and just put it together. Um, One little setback that they have had, which some of y'all are probably aware of, is the three of the vaporizers that were right here were damaged, so they ended up having to take those down. Those were damaged during the launch, Flight 8. I mean, I was actually kind of surprised about that, but you do have a pretty strong steam cloud that comes through here, and I wouldn't call it a tornado, but it's close to it. Maybe like an EF1 tornado passing through here. So
That
three of those ended up getting damaged. I wonder what they're going to do to prevent that from happening in the future.
just some stay wires like they have on the locks ones to the left.
Reasons.
Yeah, they have some cables that luckily you can't see. They look dreadful. But yeah, those sticks are definitely they're dead in line with the NSF concrete block.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, this is
they,
I mean, they won't have to worry about this once they stop using Pad A, luckily, because you're not going to have the same cloud passing through this area on Pad
no.
B launches.
No, this is specific to Pad A's launch microclimate because I think it's dead in line with one of the leg gaps.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm
And
sure
Yeah,
they didn't
it's
see that coming.
Yeah, and those things, the way that the three supports attached to those, they're just kind of friction fit on the extrusion of the heating tube. So it's like it's not even like they're bolted in a place where they can prevent them from kind of doing that parallelogram. They just kind of toppled over. Be curious if they just guy wire them or if they come in and maybe try and like lock all 6 of them together at the top so that you get a little bit more rigidity to it. Maybe some cross bracing, kind of like the high pressure tanks at the Deluge farm for Pad A.
Yeah, just put like a
Yeah.
cap over them that connects all of them together.
Yeah, and then just get some triangulation in there. Just I mean, you can't put, you probably don't want to put too much in there to restrict the airflow to them, but something to give them a little bit of structural stability because they don't really have a whole lot of inherent structure to them.
Yeah. Yeah. This is I mean, we could talk about this forever. There's so much going on down here. But I guess I'll move us on a little bit. There is another power distribution building being constructed down here, which we have talked about in the past, and you can see they are putting conduit down over here. They also have another trench going down here, so they're basically coming from 2 different directions. So I think the main power supply is coming from this direction, and then the outbound distribution is in this direction. So
I think the power is coming directly across the street because that
Yeah, and
square pad is a
oh
big
yeah,
transformer pad.
okay. So it'll. Do you think they already ran that?
Yeah.
yeah, that was run before they did any of this concrete work. Because there's a underneath,
Okay.
there's just as much conduit that we see now. There's another set of it that's buried below the concrete form that goes all the way over to D2.
Yeah, you can see on the right side of that square pad a bunch of conduit stub outs. Yeah.
But that's basically coming from here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. There's so
Are
much
you sure
conduit.
they went under the road already?
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw it probably about 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Did they horizontal drill underneath there?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, that would make sense. Um, yeah, that is kind of crazy. Just the amount of conduit between this and the one in front of the Pad B site. Just a massive amount of electrical work that they got going on down here, and that kind of. So this part have they already done from this side down, or do they even need to go there? Is this just for the
That is where
equipment
I
in this
think they're
area?
tying, because they did a lot of this work a year ago. I think a year and a half ago they
Mhm.
started some of it because they
Right.
have been putting a lot of conduit heading between here.
So they're just tying into the other bunker down here.
Yeah.
Yeah. On that note, there is some interesting other stuff going on down in this area. So finally, they have gotten rid of the little commodities trench that was down here. So this is we call this the Lego pad right here, that the vertical tanks were on, and then there was all the underground trench that ran alongside it. That all of the basically the fill lines for the to fill all of the tanks kind of ran through there, and I also believe the nitrogen supply for the liquid nitrogen supply for these heat exchangers also ran underneath here, which now it is above ground right here.
Yeah.
So they've are finally digging that out. Thoughts on what they're going to replace that with, or if they're just going to,
Con-
cover it?
Containment wall for the new tanks. Just
Yeah, this is the biggest mystery for me right now because they have not done anything with these tanks yet.
no. And the other thing is once those 6 vaporizers, they figure out how to stand them up, it'll replace the water jacketed ones, so those pill tanks will be able to go.
Yeah, I do wonder if we'll end up seeing more of these here. eventually. Like you can, if you filled up this area, then that would almost replace these ones, which not sure if that's necessarily like why they would want to do that, but also have no idea why these are here in the first place.
It's a weird spot.
Yeah, yeah. Very interesting stuff going on down here. Is there any Pad A stuff we want to talk about?
Not really. It survived really well.
Oh, well, I guess there's one thing. They are doing some modifications down here. These are
New
the
gas lines.
yeah, new gas lines. So there was one that was already down here before for the CO2. So the little tank down here is CO2 storage, and so that is basically dedicated for the booster fire suppression system. So it basically went from here underground, um, along the base of the tower, and then up one of the legs of the launch mount and into the
Yeah.
booster QD. So it seems like they're doing something to replace that. Not sure what all this additional stuff they got going on down here is, but presumably all of this is related to that.
Yeah, and they're pulling more power underneath the tanks. They set up some welding stations for plumbing.
Under here?
Yeah, you can't under. Yeah, you can't see it from this angle.
You see it from this one?
Nah, well, there's a blue tent in front, but underneath, yeah, you can't really see it. It might have been in ground photos that I saw it, but yeah, every place they can work, they seem to be having welding stations.
Yeah, this is very interesting what they got going on here. And they, in previous weeks, removed some of the high pressure gas tanks that were right here. So they actually never, I think they did hook up some of the ones on the bottom, and then they had some of the ones that were on top of here that they'd never hooked up. And it seems like they removed these ones and then connected some of the ones that weren't being used here.
Yeah, off that middle stack is where the four that they did it looked like they added to the flame trench systems for static fires at Massey's. They pulled 4 tanks off of there and added it, and then we did see we didn't touch on it when we were at Massey's because it wasn't really of any importance, but the tanks they removed are actually at the back of Massey's right now.
Yeah. So got some changes going on here for sure, which will impact kind of impact the timeline for the next static fire test of, I'm assuming, booster 14. If they don't static fire test booster 14, that'll be a very big surprise. I imagine that's what we're kind of waiting on right now. But eventually we'll reach the point that they'll only need to static fire new boosters. However, I think that's probably a ways out. But presumably you could get away with performing just a spin prime test and kind of assume that the health checks that you're doing during those spin prime tests is enough to qualify those engines as being ready to go. What is going on here? The coloring is kind of gross. I don't know if that's just the lighting we're seeing right here. I know this is kind of more black than green, but this looks weird right now.
I think it's a Photoshop artifact.
Why have they not drained that yet? Yeah, this thing is roasted. Like, man, I was wondering what it was going to look like if they launched again off of this without repainting it. And there's your answer. That thing is just, man, that's crazy.
Look at the door, the QD door.
Uh,
Looks
is there
it looks like, yeah, it just looks like charcoal.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this whole side of it looks like, yeah. I wonder if they're going to do that again. I wouldn't. I don't get why they did. I don't get why they did that. I feel like they just wanted to see what would happen, but I don't. I mean, it looked far better after the previous launch when they painted it first. In my opinion, this is not a good idea.
No.
I don't like it. Like, you don't know how long you're gonna need to continue using this, so why even do it? You know. I
Yeah,
hope
you
they paint it
have.
next time.
Yeah, they have more time to do these wall tests.
Yeah, I felt. I mean, and I'm not this full of myself to actually believe this really happened, but after the episode where I mentioned that they need to paint it before every launch and explain the reason why, it almost felt like too much of a coincidence. Like I don't really believe in coincidences, honestly. So it felt like they were like, "Oh yeah, well we'll see about that," and they decided to not paint it.
Yeah, a week
But
later.
yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, it seems like everything. I guess we haven't had as many cameras in this area because most of the attention has kind of been focused on Pad B and Tank Farm and whatnot. So it's been tough to see like what all they've had going on over here over the last like week and a half or so. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, seems like it didn't hurt it by not painting it, but I mean, the aftermath is not pleasant in my opinion. So,
Yes.
all right. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just some of the random ground photos have them chalked up the legs again, where they're gonna add some more beads of weld to fill cracks and
Aaron.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh man. I see Papa G in the comments says serves you right, Zach. That's funny. All right. Well, we are far over where I wanted to end at. I think by about 45 minutes or so. And I'm sure we have a plethora of questions. So, Astro Joe, take it away.
Yeah, I've got you covered. Not too many questions that you didn't already address, so we're not going to take too much time here. I do want to thank Martin for gifting 5 memberships, as well as Wilbo Baggins for gifting 1. Also got to thank Brianna Matthews for a $19.99 super chat, along with a question. Do you all feel that they will get more land swap to expand that area between the 2 pads where it's narrow?
Um,
Yeah, probably not, but I think I see where she's saying, where just that strip for driving over to pad A between that production wall has gotten really narrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when the wall goes all the way to where the foundation is prepped. They haven't even finished the wall all the way out yet.
It is comically small. I mean, I suppose as long as they're able to make that turn, like they don't necessarily need it, but I mean, might as well. It's funny. The funny part about this is, like, they used to drive through here because this was the staging pad for boosters at one point, which they rarely used. The fact that they even have this is funny because they used it like once, I think, with Booster 8. But yeah, the driveway, they used to drive through here, and they never really got very close to this edge. But yeah, that has clearly changed.
All right. And a saved up question from earlier from Aggie43. Is the SpaceX crane being reconfigured for a power boom for a heavy lift?
No. Well, mm,
Yeah, I don't think there's any loads that are big
no.
enough that would need a power boom, even if it is being reconfigured. I need a 3-sided coin, I think, to as a coin flip on what's going on with it. Other than right now, all we know is it's being disassembled.
Yeah.
We think that's going to be used for high bay deconstruction or anything, or what do you think's happening to it?
That's what I was expecting because I mean they have this spare crane now essentially. Well, not really. I mean, I think whatever's happening with this is temporary because if you get rid of this crane, then you have to use this one for removing the hot stage ring if that becomes necessary. So I suppose it's not too big of a deal to transport this over there. However, I don't know if it's
I don't
capable of
think I
reaching the
don't.
top of the booster in that
Yeah,
configuration.
no, in its current configuration, it's not tall enough. It doesn't even. It's not even tall enough to put the SQD arm on Tower 2 right now.
And nor will it happen in this configuration.
Right.
Yeah. I think they'll have to use a power boom for this in order to put that up there, more than likely.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah,
it'll need a
so
power boom. I
still
think it'll do it. I think they can do it with just a longer boom and or jib. I don't know that the power boom is necessary.
I don't know if they'll. Well, I guess slewing with that kind of load. I guess they kind of did it with the chopsticks already. So, but that's a much higher lift point. So,
Yeah, we'll see.
yeah.
All right.
Any more
Well,
questions?
I'll take one final question from Drew Nar. Do the tank farm pumps run backwards to detank ship and booster, or is it just gravity fed?
It's
That is
gravity
a
fed.
gravity feed. Yeah.
And yeah, there's check valves in front of the new pumps to keep them from getting backflowed.
All right, that answers that. My queue is clear. Thanks for sticking around for a little bit of overtime there, Zach. Appreciate you. You know, it's stage 0. We'll definitely get you in for an extra hour.
Yeah. Yep. I do need to return to work, so I'm glad I was able to actually do this today. Got kind of lucky that the situation aligned for me to pull that off. But yeah, we will have Stephanie here next week. So yeah, then I think it'll be a little bit of a week break, and then I'll be back 2 weeks from now, essentially. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens over the next few weeks. I think, as sad as it is to have a longer than expected delay from Flight 9, it kind of works out, because now that we're not expecting a first ship catch attempt, they're able to do some work for Pad B that otherwise would be delayed right now. So yeah, everything happens for a reason, I suppose. I guess with that, I will thank Alex and BJ for joining me today and helping me out, and Astra Joe for handling all the questions and donations, all of the mods in the chat. Of course, Mauricio for getting up there every week to take all of these images, and of course, thank you to everybody who donated during the stream today. It is extremely helpful for us. As you all know, these flights are not cheap to pull off, especially if we're doing low altitude and then also climbing up to 10,500 feet in order to get the overhead shots. So definitely appreciate everybody who's been helping out with that. And don't forget, if y'all want to go through these images yourself, there is quite a lot to see. So if you're a member of the channel or got gifted a membership today, make sure to check those out. And also, I have not mentioned at all today, so on your way out, if you can, do us a favor and hit that like button. We'd really appreciate it. Yeah, I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and I will go ahead and pass this off to Alex or BJ.
Thank you, Zach. It's a great show as always. I'm glad to be here. And BJ, good job. And thank you, Joe and Mauricio and everybody behind the scenes to make this happen. Hopefully everyone's have a great week. And to that, BJ.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us this week. Obviously, like we said when we introed, missing last week was a little bit of a bummer, but lots to see this week, lots to share and talk about, and we're going to see a lot more as they keep going full steam ahead. And thanks for everyone for joining in with the commentary. Thanks, Zach, for kind of guiding us through it, and I'll send it off.
All right, I will echo all of those sentiments, and without duplicating or taking any more of y'all's time, thanks Alex, BJ, and Zach. Always a pleasure to share the stream with you. Thanks, Emlyn, for turning the knobs and pushing the buttons. Gotta mention my lovely wifey, Astra Jen. Thank you for rounding up the talent and getting everybody scheduled. We appreciate you working in the background. Most engines cut off. Hot staging confirmed. Love ya. Bye.